A lot of us who are highly empathic, we grew up in traumatic situations. We grew up around dysfunction. We didn't have boundaries in place that allowed us to know how to stand up for ourselves. When we're young, we are taught to take care of other people's needs instead of our own. We grow up in environments where we're more focused on not upsetting other people. But over the course of my life, I realized how dangerous that was and how many people were able to take advantage of me because of that. It's so important to be able to speak up for yourself, to have an inner warrior within. But oftentimes people think of empaths as pushovers, as people that they can manipulate, get them to do all their dirty work, get them to feel sorry for them, know all their dirty little secrets, and still placate them. An empath can be a very gracious person, a person that knows the truth but won't call you on your BS. And I was definitely one of those people when I was young. I had this story of myself as being a gracious person, a person who would tolerate things. And in truth, what I realized now was that I had an avoidance coping tool. I didn't know how to cope because I was afraid to lose friendships. I was afraid to insult people. I was afraid that they would see me as a problem. I was afraid that they would become upset and I wouldn't know how to deal with that situation. And so I would minimize it by just avoiding it. I wouldn't bring things up. I wouldn't call people on their stuff. If I didn't want to be a part of their life, I would just leave and never come back. I would never tell them why. There are times when I wish I would have stood up for myself. I always stood up for other people, but I rarely stood up for myself. Really never. When I really started processing the experiences of my life, I started to see a pattern of avoidance that I was using in order to survive life. It really brought me into the conscious awareness of how many things, how many people, how many experiences that I left because I didn't have the coping tools of speaking my truth. A lot of narcissists came along to kind of play mind games with me and see what they could get away with because they got really excited by somebody who was disempowered to set boundaries. And so I learned throughout the course of my life how important it is that you're not just empathic, that you're not just gracious, that you're not just kind and caring, but you're also a warrior and you stand up for yourself and you speak the truth. And I found that when I learned to do that, when I learned to set boundaries, when I learned to say, hey, that's not okay. I expect you to treat me a different way. If you're going to be in my life, this is what I expect from you. When you don't do that, you are allowing people to play games with you and make your reality theirs. So I want to encourage anybody who might be very empathic to know that it's okay to stand your ground and speak your truth and to point out things that are not okay with you. Instead of just minimizing it and allowing it to flow out of your consciousness and away from you, recognize that what you don't think is right needs to be stated. It's a really important thing to stand up for yourself and definitely to stand up for each other, because people who are very dysfunctional will gravitate towards those people who don't know how to speak the truth and stand up for themselves. And once I really learned this, once I learned to point out what is not acceptable and to draw a line in the sand and say, no, I'm not going to allow for that, it's amazing how many people evacuated my life that were narcissists, because they realized there's an empowered person here and I can no longer wreak havoc on her anymore. And the misery stopped once I got rid of those experiences. And I wasn't really even fully aware of how miserable it was making me to allow people in my life to treat me like this. But I think it's really important that I encourage you all, if you're feeling like there are circumstances in your life that you haven't spoken to, that you feel the power to stand up for yourself, to speak for yourself. Sometimes it's not until hindsight that I realize, gee, I really wish I would have said something right then and there. But it's a practice. You start to practice, and eventually it does become right then and there. You will learn to stand up for yourself and even roar if you have to, like a lion, to get a predator away from you and let them know, I'm not afraid of you. And if you get into this territory, you're going to get eaten alive. Don't be afraid of that inner lion that's inside of you. Let that power come through around certain individuals who need to keep their distance from you. It's an important thing to have intact. Sometimes when we're empathic, we're so tuned in to the love that we feel and the care that we feel and our gentle side. But it's equally as important to have intact that lion roar and that protective, I'm watching out for everything that could be trying to seek and devour me. Make sure that you're empowering your boundaries and that no one's disrespecting those boundaries. I hope this helps you to feel empowered and really tune into that place within yourself that does feel the power to speak up for yourself, to stand upright and strong, and to let no one take that away from you.